today's show, we're still looking for Richaun Holmes. We'll look at the other members of this Kings team that have fallen out of the lineup. And Rebounds will have its first ever Fan of the Week debuted on today's show. That's all coming up on the Royal Report.
Good morning. Welcome back to Royal Rebounds, the Sacramento Kings YouTube channel for fans by fans. Happy Friday, everyone. This is episode 17 of the Royal Report, a Sacramento Kings sports talk show. The Kings are currently sitting at 22-38. That's right, they are 16 games below 500. They are currently sitting at 13th in the Western Conference, which is crazy because they're only 2 wins out of that elusive last play-in spot, Calvin.
Yes, that elusive play-in spot continues to be the bright North Star that the Kings are somehow trending towards, even though they've been struggling all year long. Welcome back, Royal family. Thank you for joining us on another fantastic Friday. As we move into All-Star Weekend, the Kings are off for a week, so we have a little league news to bring you today. So we'll hit you with a couple of quick Kings news notes. The Kings have made cleared up another roster spot as they have waived Louis King, the third-year guard out of the University of Oregon, appeared in 10 games for the Kings this season, which is actually 4 more than he played in last year. However, due to the new additions to this team, it seems as though the Kings are moving in a different direction. Already waiving Jahmias Ramsey and Robert Woodard. Now Louis King is the newest addition to that list. Davion Mitchell, who missed the other night's game with a hand contusion, will now be out of the Rising Stars game this weekend as well. So congratulations to Davion for making the squad. Of course, unfortunately, we will not get to see him participate in the festivities in Cleveland this weekend. Barry, as we move into All-Star Weekend, what are you looking forward to the most?
Well, honestly, I'm looking forward to a little bit of time off, Calvin. The All-Star festivities. I do love All-Star Weekend. It's always been a dream of mine to go visit an All-Star Weekend and see everything in person. But, as far as dunk contest, three-point competition, all this stuff, it seems to get a little old. It feels like they've kind of run out of ideas. I know they're experimenting with a new format this year for the sophomore and rookie game, and that will be exciting to watch. But unfortunately, with not many Kings involved, I think the only official King that is involved is Vivek's daughter in the Celebrity All-Star game. So I will definitely be watching that. But without that, there's not much going on for Kings fans this weekend.
Yeah, you are right about that. I am a sucker for the dunk contest. I always have been. I'll still probably watch, even though I'm not too excited about it this season. We'd, of course, love to see some more Kings players in action this weekend, but hopefully we'll have that to look forward to next season.
Yeah, and also a quick reminder to all the Kings fans out there, Domantas Sabonis, one of the newest Sacramento Kings, is actually the reigning skills champion. He placed second place in 2020 and took home the prize last year. So that is pretty exciting. And I guess another pat on the back for us. Well, another week of Sacramento Kings basketball, and it wasn't a very good week. I know it was exciting with all these new additions, but the Sacramento Kings went 1-2 on the week, beating the Washington Wizards and then falling to both the Brooklyn Nets and the Chicago Bulls. Both of those 2 last teams are dealing with a ton of injuries, and unfortunately Sacramento was just not able to match up with them. We did see a good week out of De'Aaron Fox. He had multiple great offensive outputs, 26 points in the first game, 26 in the second game, and then him and Domantas Sabonis combined for 55 points in that third game. We also saw a big game by Justin Holiday, 18 points against the Bulls. Was not enough to overcome an amazing scoring streak by DeRozen. And it also looks like Harrison Barnes has shown back up this week, Cal.
Yes, Harrison Barnes has played fantastic since we've gotten these new additions to the roster alongside De'Aaron Fox. The two of them have really looked great. I think we kind of came crashing back down to earth a little bit this week after the high of seeing all these new players on the team. They got a couple of wins right away, made everybody feel really, really good. The problem is they just went up against some really good teams after that. I mean, the Brooklyn Nets have struggled with injuries all season long. Now they make a big trade as well, but they've still got a ton of all-star and Hall of Fame talent on this roster, even when guys like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving aren't playing. They're still a very formidable team, and of course the Kings had a horrible shooting performance against them, which will never help this team that needs points to win games. We all know that very, very well. I think it's very encouraging to see how well De'Aaron Fox has played as of late. The guy looks like he's definitely reinvigorated. His attitude, his demeanor on the court, his hustle and effort defensively have all been marginally better since the trade deadline, which again is a very encouraging sign. You just have to continue to preach patience with this squad. It's basically a whole new team that's trying to figure out how to play together at this point. The starters, which we'll get into a little bit later on this show, I think have shown a lot of really good chemistry so far. It really helps when you have a big man that can pass the way Domantas Sabonis can. So we just have to keep on keeping on with this team. Monty McNair said it. These moves were not necessarily for this season. It's looking ahead to the next couple of years that this team is going to ramp up being more and more competitive. So right now they're just getting reps in and hopefully using the break wisely to get some rest and maybe some team bonding, Barry.
Yeah, I think this week off will really benefit this Kings team. They'll get some practice time in. They'll get to work on some sets. And just overall team bonding and team chemistry with 6 new players on this roster. A bunch of players were sent out. We've seen players cut as of recently. So it'll be interesting to see how they're all able to just finally put it together. But the question I have for you, Calvin, is it seems like quite a few players have fallen out of the rotation lately. What's going on with the others?
Well, that's a good question. Some of these guys, we're really not sure what is going on with them, other than, like you mentioned, just brought in 6 new players. All of those guys were pretty regular rotation players or starters on their former teams, so you have to expect that they're going to get a bunch of playing time right away. Obviously, the Kings want to see what their new toys look like. You know, it's kind of like Christmas morning. You want to unwrap the presents and play with the new toys all the time. Some of these guys, have fallen out of the lineup for other reasons than they're just not playing. I mean, Terrence Davis is out for the rest of the season. I'm not really sure where he would look or fit into the rotation right now. He was already playing behind a bunch of guards. Now he's playing behind a bunch of guards again. Alex Len and Davion Jones, 2 familiar faces that we were getting really accustomed to seeing before the deadline. We haven't seen much of it all lately. Davion Jones is the only one of these 3 guys that's going to be a free agent next season. Terrence Davis and Alex Len are both under contract for 1 more year. Barry, I'm not really sure where the Kings go from here. As it relates to these 3 players, I don't expect to see Davion Jones back at this point now that you've gotten Sabonis in there. Having Davis and Len under contract for another year is a nice little, safety cushion, I would say. But it's going to be tough, I think, for these guys to crack this lineup, especially now that you've added more veteran and ready-to-win now players.
Yeah, I'm also looking at guys like Keita and Jeremy Lamb. I know Lamb's been dealing with an injury as of late, but he was part of that Tyrese Halliburton trade that came back to Sacramento. It's really, we're not sure what's going to happen with these guys. But, as we've seen this season, due to injuries, due to COVID outbreaks, stuff like that, having a deeper team definitely benefits you. So I do expect these guys to get some playing time. It's just a matter of when. And also, depending on where the team goes as far as wins and losses, if the losses continue to pile up, I expect Alvin Gentry to throw a lot more of these guys out into the rotation to kind of see what they give you and give them a better option or picture as far as next season goes. But if the Kings start to win some games here, I can see the rotation tightening up a little bit, and I can see some of these guys not touching the floor.
Yeah, I think you've already seen that. I mean, just in the few games, 2 or 3 games since these new players have all been active and in the lineup, it's pretty much been an 8 or 9 man rotation for Sacramento, which they have done in the past, but we've also seen them go 10, 11, and 12 deep at times this season. But I think with the addition of the types of players that they've gotten here, it makes sense that Alvin Gentry is kind of shortening up the lineup a little bit and trying to see what the Kings have looking forward to next season going into this offseason.
Yeah, and speaking of lineups, we're going to jump into the Sacramento Kings starting five when we come back from this quick break. We have seen quite a few different starting lineups for the Sacramento Kings roster this season. More than I can count, but it seems like they have finally settled upon a starting roster. The past 3 games, they've remained consistent with De'Aaron Fox, Justin Holiday, Mo Harkless, Harrison Barnes, and Domantas Sabonis in that starting 5. They are currently 1-2 with this starting lineup. The game before that, they were able to switch Metu for Harkless, and they were able to win that game as well. But Calvin, I just want to hear your thoughts on what you think about this starting lineup, if you would change it at all, and what to expect for them through the rest of the season.
Well, I like the starting lineup that the Kings have been using recently. I think it's the lineup that they should continue to go with. It's only been a few games, as you mentioned, and we've already seen that group of 5 players look like they click pretty well. They play well off of each other. Obviously Sabonis and a guy like Justin Holiday already have a bit of a rapport together, some chemistry. I think it was something around 24-25% of Sabonis's assists in Indiana went to Justin Holiday. So it makes sense that they would look good together right away. Harrison Barnes is a great guy to play alongside someone like Sabonis, really good at moving without the ball, timing his cuts very, very well. And then you've got a great passing center who can find him, obviously. And then De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis, these two are looking more and more like they were a match made for each other, using that pick and roll game really, really well. The team has put up points, aside from that one game against the Brooklyn Nets where they did not shoot very well. Guys like Holiday have been up and down shooting, but he's done much better recently. And Mo Harkless, he's kind of been the wild card for the Kings all season long. I mean, he's out there for his defensive versatility, his length. I like that alongside Harrison Barnes at the forward spots, just because of the fact they can guard multiple positions and switch a lot of screens. But offensively, you just never really know what you're going to get from Mo. So I really think that there's only 2 possible changes that you would look to make in this lineup. It's who starts at the shooting guard. A lot of people have said they'd like to see Donte DiVincenzo get a start. You also have a guy like Davion Mitchell, who started a bunch of games for the Kings this year. And then who starts at that forward position? Is it Mo Harkless? Is it Chimezie Metu? I think that the Kings are on the right track here. And as you mentioned, they've had a lot of different starting lineups this season. So I think it's important for the Kings to kind of close out this year with the same group, get a little bit of continuity, and especially if all these guys are going to return next season, you want them to have the confidence that this is the group going forward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. One thing that we've been really preaching this entire season is consistency. And that is, the Sacramento Kings have been the complete opposite of that, both in the coaching staff, the starting lineups, and play by a lot of these players. I agree with you that Mo Harkless seems to be the weak point or the weakest chain on offense as far as the rotations go. When he plays well offensively, the Kings play well, and they usually win games. But he hasn't been that consistent. So he would be the only guy out of the starting lineup that I would consider potentially moving to the bench and bringing in another guy. I don't know if that would be Jeremy Lamb. I would consider possibly bringing in a guy like Damian Jones. But I'm going to roll with this lineup for now. I'm going to see what happens with Mo Harkless. If he can start making some shots, I'd be happy to keep him in the starting lineup because I think this team is very versatile, and I think that this is a great lineup for playing fast, up-pace offense like they want to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more with that. Another one of the new additions to this Sacramento Kings team that we've mentioned a lot, Monte McNair has had his eye on this guy for quite some time. We all know that now. Donte DiVincenzo, who Kings fans are starting to get more and more excited about. to use a baseball term here, this guy is like a five-tool player. He really does a lot of things very, very well. The shooting has been a little bit of a slow start so far in Sacramento. But, Barry, you know how much we love nicknames here at Royal Rebounds and on the Royal Report. Katie Christensen gave us another good one a couple of days ago when she referred to DiVincenzo as Downtown Donte. When will we start to see more of Downtown Donte, Barry?
I hope soon. I really love this guy. I love his effort. I love his energy. I love his enthusiasm. I did not know this guy was as good of a rebounder as he is, but he seems to be all over the court grabbing rebounds. He's a great defender. I know he's recovering from this ankle injury, and he has not seemed like downtown Donte in Sacramento. He's only shooting 22% from three-point range this season while in a Sacramento uniform. However, he's a 34% shooter for his entire career, which for me is enough. You know, that's 1 point per shot. That's equivalent to shooting 50% from the field. So I'm completely happy with that. But for me, the biggest thing about Donte is his defense. He has a 6'6" wingspan. He's a very, very versatile guy. He has a lot of lateral quickness. I think as he continues to recover and heal and get back to 100% from that ankle injury, he will turn into an absolute stud on the defensive end of the floor for Sacramento. In 2020, he was top of the league in grabbing loose balls and pass deflections, two things that this Kings team has sorely been missing over the past 2 seasons. And as you mentioned, Monte McNair's staff has been targeting Donte for quite a while. I'm happy he's here with Sacramento. I love the nickname. I can't wait till he's shooting a little bit better. But, you know, the energy, the effort, and just his consistency as far as those things go on the court are very, very welcome here in Sacramento.
They absolutely are. I like you said, the shooting will come with time. I mean, it's the same thing that we mentioned with Davion Mitchell earlier this season when he was really struggling to put the ball in the basket. I'm not concerned about his shooting at all, really. It's just a matter of him working his way back into a new team. You know, people are forgetting, I think, a lot how many games this guy has actually played this season. That ankle injury has really kept him sidelined for a good portion of this year. So now he's not only working himself back into physical game shape, but he's also with a brand new team trying to figure out a new role. I think it's a role that is going to be a little bit increased from what he has been used to, you know, in Milwaukee, where he could rely maybe on all-star Hall of Fame type level players to kind of carry the load, and he was really, you know, more of a behind-the-scenes guy. Here, he's going to be asked to do more, but I think that the combination of him, as you talked about with defense, him and Davion Mitchell together in the backcourt off the bench is going to be a really, really scary defensive backcourt here by this time next season.
Yeah, and speaking of new roles, Richaun Holmes is currently trying to discover his new role on this roster after the Kings traded for two-time All-Star Domantas Sabonis and moved Richaun Holmes to the bench center position. We saw him in the last game just play 10 minutes, have 2 rebounds, score 0 points. He's been dealing with a ton of different things this season as far as COVID, eye injuries, a death of a cousin. You know, it's really shown up in his stat sheet. You know, most Kings fans were really excited about Richaun and being able to re-sign him in the offseason. He started out this year so hot, and he actually had a 20-point, 20-rebound game this season. I think he was the first Kings player to do that in like almost 20 years. As of lately, he has not played well. In his last 8 games, he's only scored double-digit points in one of those. December 1st was his last 10-plus rebound game. 9 out of his first 13 games this season, he had double-digit rebounds. So it's really been a tough stretch of games for Richaun Holmes. But surprisingly enough, Calvin, he's actually shooting a career best from field goals this season and from three-point range. He's shooting 66.9% from the field and 40% from the three-point line. I know he doesn't shoot a lot of threes, Calvin, and I'm not pushing that second number, but I was pretty impressed to learn that this is his best shooting season of his career, considering you and I have been asking, what happened to the push shot? Where's the push shot? Normally, He always makes those.
Yeah, it's been a very difficult season for Richaun. There's no sugarcoating that at all. The guy has been through a lot, both physically, mentally, on court issues, off court issues. So we, of course, we want Richaun to succeed. We wish him the best, and hope that he, continues or gets back to the old Richaun that we became accustomed to seeing last season. The guy, it's really not all on him, though. I mean, there's a lot of other factors here, I think, that go into why Richaun has had what most of us consider a down year. First and foremost, the minutes just aren't there. I mean, the guy is not playing as much as we're used to seeing him play, whether that's because he's sidelined with injuries or a COVID related issue, or it's the fact that they just traded for a two-time All-Star who happens to play center, and now he's relegated to the bench. You have to also take into account the fact that Richaun, when it comes to offense and especially scoring points, the guy's very dependent on the players around him, particularly the guards. He's now playing with different guards than he's played with for the past 3 or 4 seasons. He's been really used to De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton over the past year and a half. Tyrese, obviously, got to be one of the favorite teammates that Richaun's ever had. They really, really had a good two-man game together, a lot of chemistry. Now he's having to play with guys that one of them he's never played with before in DiVincenzo or Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday, those guys, and Davion Mitchell, who's a very different type of guard than De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton is. So it's a combination of a lot of things for Richaun. I'm really interested to see what the Kings do with him this offseason. He was my number one area of focus for the Kings offseason last year when it came to re-signing him. He's probably the number one area of focus for me again this offseason, but not for the same reason. The question is he part of the long-term plans in Sacramento?
Yeah, and unfortunately, he's only been able to suit up for 41 out of the 60 games this season. As you mentioned, he's down in minutes, he's down in points, rebounds, and blocks. We really hope Richaun Holmes can find his way, get back on the court, because if he's able to be himself, he is going to absolutely kill it off the bench for Sacramento. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to dive into Calvin's favorite section of the show, Cowbell Questions.
Welcome back to the Row Report. We are back to answer all of your burning Sacramento Kings questions in a segment we like to call Cowbell Questions. If you'd like to hear Barry and I answer a question of yours in the future, please write it down in the comment section below this video and hashtag it Cowbell Questions. Barry, it's time. Let's get our first question from producer Vinny.
Why is De'Aaron Fox considered to be currently better than Tyrese?
That's a tough question. I would just go as far as history and accolades up to this point. De'Aaron Fox doesn't have a Rookie of the Year. He doesn't have any All-Star nods or anything like that. But you just look at the consistency and the things that he's done over the past 4.5 seasons. I love Tyrese Halliburton. I honestly think Tyrese Halliburton has a higher ceiling, and I think he could eventually become a better player than De'Aaron Fox. But as of right now, I got to go with the numbers, and that's straight up De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, I mean, numbers don't lie. Tyrese hasn't played as many seasons as De'Aaron, obviously, but Fox has averaged over 20 points a game for the past 3 years. Last year, he had what many people considered to be an all-star level season. There are a couple of things that Tyrese does better already than De'Aaron Fox, particularly shooting, outside shooting. He's a much, much better shooter. But the question is, when will Tyrese overtake De'Aaron, and when will people consider him a better player? 25 points and 7 assists a game is really, really good numbers for any starting guard in this league. I think Tyrese has the ability to get to that at some point. But a lot of people forget, we talk a lot about how great of a passer Tyrese is. De'Aaron Fox averaged over 7 assists a game last year. He's averaged over 6 assists for his entire career. Those numbers, like I said, speak for themselves. So De'Aaron is still the better basketball player as of today. I'm not sure how much longer that is going to last for, though. Next question.
Who's the best player in this current roster?
Oh, that's a tough question. Early on in the season, we were possibly, nominating Harrison Barnes as the best player on this roster. Then there was, Tyrese Halliburton, De'Aaron Fox, talking about those guys. And then you add in a guy like Domantas Sabonis, the only guy that actually has some accolades on this team. He's a two-time All-Star. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, he won the skills challenge last season. I don't really put any weight under that, but I have to go with Sabonis at this point, Calvin.
Yeah, I think the answer to this question really just depends on how you interpret the question. Like you just mentioned, when you look at individual accolades, things like that, you have to give it to Domantas Sabonis. He's a two-time All-Star. De'Aaron Fox has never made an All-Star team. The guy has put up good numbers all for basically his whole career, and he flirts around with triple-doubles on a regular basis for a center, which is very, very impressive. However, if you're looking at this question as in who is the actual best basketball player when it comes to basketball talent, I'm still going to go with De'Aaron Fox. The guy is one of the best scorers in the game, really, really efficient player. His speed, his quickness, his two-way ability, his defensive potential, all of that stuff, a lot of it you really cannot teach. It's just God-given talent. And when it comes to actually basketball ability, he is by far the best or most talented basketball player on this team. So awards, Sabonis, basketball ability, De'Aaron Fox.
And we need to see how consistent these guys are going to be. Like a fully engaged De'Aaron Fox, yes. We've seen him be that since the All-Star or since the trade deadline. Will he continue to be that? I really hope so. And if he does, he can be the best player on this team. Next question.
Predict how many All-Stars will be on this roster next season.
This is, again, a tough question. I am going to predict there will be one All-Star on this team next year. I think the Kings have two players that could very well be All-Stars. However, it's really hard to make an All-Star roster. There are a ton of incredibly talented players in this league. I don't expect either one of these guys to get voted in to the starting five because they play in Sacramento, and they're probably not going to get enough votes from around the rest of the league and the country. But I think that one of these guys, I'm not sure which one it's going to be yet, Sabonis or Fox, will get accepted in as a reserve to the All-Star team next season.
I'm going to let my optimism take the wheel here, and I'm going to say 2 to 3, Calvin. I got so excited watching Monty's press conference, touting that draft pick. We still have our draft pick, and we're going to make another move this offseason to bring in some more talent to this roster. I wish I could say 3. I really hope it's 3, but I'm going to go conservative here and say 2, Calvin. I think De'Aaron Fox will make the All-Star team. I think Domantas Sabonis will make the All-Star team. I think a lot of these stars in the West are getting older. We just saw the injury to Anthony Davis the other night. I think it's time for these young guns in Sacramento to take over the All-Star game for the Western Conference. I'm going 2.
I love your optimism, Barry. Always love it. That's all the time we have for Cowbell Questions. Thank you again for your submissions. Of course, you know the drill. To hear Barry and I answer a question on a future show of the Royal Report, we look forward to your future questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for your questions. All right, so we debuted this next topic last week, and I just want to remind you all that we are taking submissions for Kings Fan of the Week. We will have it set up on our website very soon, but in the meantime, you can send your submissions to our Instagram account at Royal Rebounds. Send us a 60-second clip, please not a 60-minute clip, or so, telling us why you are a Kings fan, some favorite memories of being in a Kings jersey, and just overall why you root for this team. This week's submission is set in by none other than Sacktown Pete. So Sacktown Pete, I'm giving it to you here, buddy. Tell us why you are a Sacramento Kings fan.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Peter. I go by Sacktown Pete. I've always been a Sacramento Kings fan since I was a little baby. My dad grew up watching the Sacramento Kings basketball himself, and he got me hooked on the team. My very first jersey was a Jason Williams white chocolate jersey. And I've always been a fan since I started watching early on with Chris Webber and those great teams that we had back then, and to the present where we're at right now. And we've traded for a two-time NBA All-Star in Domantas Sabonis. We have De'Aaron Fox playing like himself, and we have Davion Mitchell, and the future is bright. So stay optimistic. We're going to get this right. Go Kings. There's great days ahead. Sacramento proud.
Thanks, Pete. That was an awesome answer. And if anybody can actually put together a 60-minute video of why they're a Sacramento Kings fan, be my guest. We will gladly have you on the show if you could complete that video.
I'm not sure if you're going to be able to send that on Instagram, but you can break up the clips and send it to us, please.
Well, Barry, the Kings have a pretty light week next week as we move into the next week of basketball for your Sacramento Kings. It is All-Star Weekend, so no games for a little less than a week. The Kings will be back in action next Thursday to take on the Denver Nuggets, who somehow just continue to get wins, even though this team is depleted again of talent. No Michael Porter Jr., no Jamal Murray. No problem when you've got an MVP in Nikola Jokic. They are currently 6th in the Western Conference. Barry, tell me how the Kings are going to beat this team.
The Kings are going to beat this team by scoring more points than the Denver Nuggets. I'm sticking with that key to the game, Calvin, for the rest of the season. I just think that
it's a solid key.
Giving them too much to work on at once, as we've seen in the past, has just been overwhelming for them. I don't want to, forget about All-Star Weekend and watching the Rising Stars Challenge and all this sophomore rookie game. I will be watching Tyrese Halliburton. I wish him well. Unfortunately, Davion Mitchell will be out of that. And we will see Vivek's daughter, Nani, will be in the Celebrity All-Star Game. So make sure you guys tune in for that and root for her. As far as the Denver Nuggets game goes, Calvin, this is the first of 2 games in a row against Denver. The Kings just need to do something. They need to shoot better. They need to get some production out of Mo Harkless. They need some bench production as well. And honestly, Calvin, they just need to get some chemistry over this next week off and come in strong. They need to have a solid plan. This Denver team, as you mentioned, is injured. They are very, very beatable. It's moments like this where you ask yourself, if you're a Kings player, do you want to make the playoffs this season? Because if you do, these are the games that you need to win.
Oh, yeah. They don't have much margin for error, absolutely, for the rest of the season. All of these games are must-win games now if the Kings are looking at a potential playoff berth for sure. I want to know from you real quickly, Barry, over or under 2.5 points for Nani in the All-Star Celebrity Game?
Oh, I'm going over.
Okay.
Her dad coached her. I know she's a big fan of the cherry-picking action, so hopefully we will see that in this All-Star game. But I also expect her to splash in a 3.
Okay.
Why not?
Right. You heard it here first.
Why not? Why not? Well, thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Royal Report. We appreciate you guys for watching. Please make sure to smash up that like button down below. If you enjoy awesome Kings content like this, please consider hitting that subscribe button if you would like to join the Royal family with Calvin and Vinny and I. We would love to hear from you all in the comments down below. So please throw your cowbell questions down there. If you have any comments about what the Kings need to work on over this next week off, or any predictions on how the Kings will finish this season and whether they can make it into that play-in spot, please let us know down below. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful Friday. And in the meantime, go Kings.
Have you seen the Vinny Squatch?